enemy? Who's your enemy? Who's your enemy? Enemy.
No doubt you are going to be seeing a lot of that today and in the coming days. The buzz around the NHL playoffs. It's an exciting time of year. And we've got 3 Canadian teams in the mix this year. The Winnipeg Jets, the Edmonton Oilers, and some other team? I'm Kieran Oudshoorn, an Oilers fan, in for Andrew Chang. And the Stanley Cup Finals was watched last year by more than 6.5 million people on TV, hanging on every shot, every save. But today's show isn't about what happens on the ice. It's about what happens in the commercial breaks.
Do you want to bet on live sports?
Jamie Foxx, what's up, my man?
What up, Barry? Got time to chat bets?
Yeah.
You can play to win with BetRivers.com.
Familiar faces, huge names, all pushing serious sports betting. But alarms are starting to go off about the potential harm that these ads can cause, especially around who is seeing them and who is starring in the campaigns.
Well, really what we're seeing is the gambling industry grooming the next generation of their customers. So these ads are really targeted to make gambling look fun, sexy, and safe. And that's why they use trusted sports stars to do it, because they know that those people will appeal to the younger generation.
One of the world's biggest gambling hotspots recently changed its sports betting laws after research emerged about a growing demographic of problem gamblers. Children. Some as young as 11 years old. And it's raised questions here in Canada, too. In fact, late last week, just ahead of the playoffs, Ontario's Alcohol and Gaming Commission announced that it could be changing some rules. Ontario's Alcohol and Gaming Commission surprised everyone when it announced that it was going to start looking into restricting athletes and celebrities from appearing in internet gambling ads. And that could mean that operators and suppliers would need to stop using athletes in commercials and would restrict anyone or anything that could reasonably be expected to appeal to minors from being in ads. So that would include cartoons, celebrities, and social media influencers.
Every game starts at bet99.net.
Drain that 3!
Trying to practice here, Wayne.
You need it. Yes!
Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid, arguably 2 of the NHL's biggest stars right now, along with the great one, Wayne Gretzky, are all ambassadors for major sports betting companies. And their ads are exactly the types of campaigns that the AGCO is considering banning. Now, they've committed to gathering feedback from stakeholders until May 8th, but the next steps remain a little unclear. And on the same day as the AGCO made their announcement, England's Premier League came out saying that they're planning on making changes of their own. And while they are banning gambling sponsors on the front of jerseys as of summer 2026,
They won't remove them from the stadiums or from the arms of football kits or anything else. So it's a kind of, for us, it's a big step forward in terms of there's an acceptance that the advertising is harmful today, but the policies to rectify that are really tokenistic.
all of this comes on the heels of research that led to the ban last year of gambling ads in the UK featuring athletes and celebrities like this. That's Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the world's most famous soccer players. And he spent several years of his career in the UK. And again, the UK has one of the biggest gambling markets.
When you have a gambling industry that's churning through its best customers like that, it's completely dependent upon advertising to replace them. And that's why in the UK gambling industry spends £1.5 billion a year advertising.
A study there found that in 2021, there were 1.4 million people struggling with gambling addiction. And an astounding number of those people are really young. A 2019 UK Gambling Commission survey said that 55,000 children between the ages of 11 and 16 were problem gamblers.
I find that deeply concerning. We're not entirely sure how many of those young people have become addicted on regulated UK gambling sites, but we do hear lots of stories about young people who are able to use their parents' accounts or their friends' accounts, or they create false accounts so that they're able to gamble on UK regulated sites.
The reason advocates like Will Prohaska are pushing so hard for UK officials to act is that, like any other addiction, gambling can kill. According to the UK government, there are as many as 500 suicides a year linked with gambling.
Canada should be learning from the UK's experience. We've almost been a sort of petri dish for these products, if you will, a kind of test bed. And I can tell you, looking through my inbox with the number of bereaved families because of suicide caused by gambling, this isn't the type of regulatory environment that Canada should be looking to emulate. This is exactly what you should not be doing.
And that is exactly why Ontario's gambling regulator says it's considering rule changes. Now, this consultation period is happening right now, and it comes only a year after this all got started here in Ontario. And part of the reason why these rules were changed was to create a safer way for people to bet on sports. But safer for who? That's what's being called into question now. So there is a lot to get our heads around on this story and a lot of perspectives to consider. And to better understand this world of sports betting ads, I wanted to bring in Donovan Bennett. He's a Sportsnet host, a podcaster, a writer, a friend of the show. Hey, Donovan.
Thanks for having me once again.
Okay, so starting off with this topic, thinking about the fact that since single game betting became legal here in Ontario about a year ago or so, we've seen this proliferation of ads everywhere. I mean, like, I see signs all over the place. I see it on YouTube. And obviously, whenever I'm watching any kind of sporting event, they're everywhere. So are you surprised by just how much advertising has sort of popped up in this last year?
No, not at all. For one, I think it's a sign of the times, right? We no longer are in the information age where people need to know about the product that they are offering you. It's all about the attention economy, which is why you see the billboards all over the highways in this country and all over your television in commercial and in actual live event time. Because similar to when marijuana was legalized, there was a flood of the market of so many people offering somewhat similar product. And so the real battle was to get your attention, to differentiate that product from whatever else was out there so that you could slowly get some market share based off of brand recognition. So I actually think that we'll see this continue for a while until 2 or 3 strong players leave the rest of the pack.
You talk about brand recognition, and I feel like a big part of that has been athletes stepping up and being the face of some of these shows. You know, major athletes that we see all the time playing games. And I'm curious what your take is on the fact that they're making this decision to front these types of businesses.
Well, I think similar to the athletes as it is to the leagues, this is a unique revenue stream, right? Something that has come up that allows them another category with which to be an endorser or a brand spokesman. Now, every individual athlete is going to make the decision on, does this make sense for my brand? Like they would for any other category. And so I'm not surprised that it's not just current athletes. Former athletes, retired athletes as well, are being used as spokespeople. Ultimately, we'll see if there is, a little bit of fatigue about hearing about all things betting, but also if the big portion of the betting public says, I actually think it's not a great look for you as an athlete to be associated with, then I think we'll start to see it go away. But no, I'm not surprised to see that happen as well.
I'm interested to get into the question around sort of some of the ethical gray areas that exist around here. I know some of the news, we're going to get into this a little bit more about some of the changes that are happening here in Canada or potentially. But there is a concern that this type of advertising is being seen by maybe more than just the people that are being targeted by it. It's being seen by children. It's being seen by people who are, have real challenges with gambling. How does that factor into how both these sports figures are operating and choosing to front these companies, and also just these companies going forward?
Yeah, it's a fascinating choice as we start to untangle and decide, right, in North America specifically, because this has been a scenario that they've had in the UK for quite some time, is what's our personal and collective moral compass on this issue? For me, I don't see it being appreciably different than athletes or celebrities endorsing alcohol, for example. They're influencers in the same way. It is dangerous in the hands of people who have addiction issues and young minors in the same way. So post-prohibition, alcohol is legal, clearly. And so if, sports betting is going to be legal, I think we should look at it in the same way. The interesting portion here is, where exactly do you draw the line on these things? Is it just single game betting? Are we worried about parlays, which you've been able to do in this province and in this country for a long time, which is betting on multiple games at the same time? Daily fantasy is also something that's somewhat similar to gambling and offered by some of the same companies. Do we worry about athletes in association with that as well? and fantasy. Whether you're playing fantasy and you're putting money on it with your friends, or you have a perfect NCAA bracket and you win a trip to the NCAA tournament. Where exactly, based off of precedent, are we going to draw this line? I think it's something that we all are worth discussing.
You know, so obviously there's children that are potentially exposed to some of these ads. There's people who have gambling addictions, and I think you make a really interesting connection between, alcohol is something that we still see advertisement for. I'm curious because we've also been hearing some stories recently about athletes who are affected by the increase in gambling and some of the responses they've been getting. What are your thoughts on the fact that athletes have been receiving more abuse as well?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. It's one of the unintended consequences of opening things up. Athletes have been getting abuse since the beginning of time, and certainly that has jumped since the beginning of social media, right? LeBron James sees mentions the way that Michael Jordan didn't, but specifically around people losing money, large amounts of money. They feel entitled to say things to athletes. We've seen some Toronto Raptors say that they've had horrible things in their mentions. But my worry is around student athletes, because college sports is bet on as much, if not more, than pro sports. And student athletes aren't benefiting from these bets, but yet they still have to deal with the abuse. And they're not at an age or stage where they might be able to curtail some of the negative mental health aspects of it. So in terms of a support scenario, I think we should think about that.
Okay, so let's back up and take a look at the way that governments are responding to this. I know in the UK that they've banned ads for some of these betting companies, and that by 2026 the Premier League is going to stop putting logos on teams' jerseys. And then here in Canada, at least in Ontario specifically, the Alcohol and Gaming Commission, they're taking a look at the potential impacts of these ads and might make some changes there. So what do we see in terms of coming down the road? Is this sort of the trend that we're going to see more controls, we think, on betting?
I think so. I think what we're seeing is that the leagues and legislators want a little bit of plausible deniability from the ills of sports betting. Still want the money, but not the blame. In terms of what we've seen the AGCO do, when you read through it, it's really interesting. It's not just putting a curtail to athletes being spokespeople. It's former athletes, celebrities, and influencers. So that doesn't really leave you with many people left to endorse your product. I do think it might be, somewhat of benefit. But if you want to bet, you're not just going to do it because Austin Matthews said so. What is more impactful is the fact that these sports betting companies are able to give you credits, give you $100 when you start.
Right.
We would never allow that if it was alcohol or marijuana. And so I think there's more tangible things that they could do to at least curtail the start of sports betting for people who aren't used to it.
Right. Okay, well, I feel like this is a topic that we could keep on talking about. It's super interesting, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But thank you so much for coming in and sort of helping give a good perception of where things are at.
Anytime.